All right. So for number 4 on the notes from section 7, we got this x cubed minus 4x squared minus 5 divided by x minus 1. There is something missing from this, from what we normally see. Does anyone notice what's missing? Is that a little bit louder? An x to the first power term. Does everybody see that we have an x cubed, an x squared, but no x to the first power term? That is a major problem for synthetic if you don't notice it, because synthetic is all about lining everything up and the organization. So to make this work, I'm going to do 1x cubed minus 4x squared. I'm going to put a 0 in for the x term and then a -5 in for the constant term. That 0 has to be included to show that we did not have an x term. Does that make sense to everybody? Any missing terms, we need to put that 0 in for them. So now I'm going to put something in the box over here. What goes in the box right here? Okay, it's coming from this, but what specifically do I put in that box? So just a +1. Now, one of the other students in the previous period mentioned that we're putting in the x-intercept. That is a good way of remembering it. If you want to think of it as the x-intercept or the 0 or the root from this factor, you can use that. Does that make sense to everybody? Or you can just think of it as the opposite. But we already know that the root x-intercept 0 is the opposite of that term if it's x plus a number or x minus a number. So we've got it all set up. Let's finish it. First step. What's the very first thing I do for synthetic division? There are a couple of you, but we're not very confident. Anybody? Bring the 1 down. Okay. So we're going to bring the 1 down. Does that make sense? Then what do I do with this 1? Multiply it by the 1 in the box. So again, our pattern is first one comes down, then whatever's down here times what's in the box. 1 times 1 is 1. -4 plus 1 is -3. -3 times 1, -3. 0 minus 3 is -3. -3 times 1, also -3. -5 minus 3 is -8. So the question here, and again, I have a bad habit. I've been, again, typically as the day goes on, I've gone through the same questions many, many times. I often forget to specifically read the instructions for you. I'm hoping that you're all reading the instructions as we go, but I should really be drawing your attention more to these as we go. The instructions here, I think it's actually up higher, are telling us, is this a factor? We're trying to figure out if this is a factor. What am I looking for? How do I know if this is a factor or not? Yes, so if it works, we're going to say, okay, this times this makes my original statement. But what am I looking for specifically right here? If there's a remainder and if it's 0, does that make sense? I heard several people chime in there. So right here, this is my remainder. It's not 0. So this did not go in evenly. So I'm going to put it down here. No, it's not a factor because the remainder was not 0. Anything along those lines is going to be fine. So again, you can say because the remainder was -8, because it had a remainder, anything like that. All right, look down, go ahead and turn the page. Let's look at number 5 now. We'll do 2 more here from the notes, and I'll give you a chance to do a problem or 2 from the homework. No, we're going to skip number 3. We don't really need it. It's the same as the other things. If you want to. So for number 5, here is where long division and synthetic division really shine. I have 4 terms, but factoring by grouping does not work. Does that make sense to everybody? If I look at these, those 2 terms have an x squared in common. These 2 terms have nothing in common. They're not going to match if I try factoring by grouping. So they're going to tell us a factor. They tell us that x minus 8 is a factor. So I'm going to factor that one out using long division or synthetic division. So I'm going to put the 8 in the box. I'm going to list the coefficients: 1, -10, 13, 24. I'm going to bring the first one down. 1 times 8 gets me 8. -10 plus 8 is -2. Welcome, money. -2 times 8, -16. 13 minus 16 is -3. -3 times 8 is -24. 24 minus 24 is 0. If that one didn't work, we'd have a major problem because they told me it was a factor. I cannot do this if it doesn't work out nicely. Does that make sense to everybody? It's got to work out nicely. It does. What do I do with these numbers? 1, -2, -3. I'll take any volunteer. Who remembers what we do with these numbers? They're not actually my final answer. I'll give you a hint. This x minus 8, we said, okay, x minus 8 now times something makes this full thing here. But what was it? When I divided the x minus 8 out, what was I left over with? What goes in that set of parentheses? You are so close. So close. I bet if you were to say it, someone could fix it for you because you're so close. Do you want to say it louder?
1x cubed.
Okay, why is it squared? We already divided by the x. So Alejandro, with that, 1x squared, can you finish it? What's the rest of it?
Minus 3x.
Okay, you skipped one.
Minus 2.
Minus 2.
X squared.
Okay, so we had the x squared, x.
Minus 3.
Uh-huh.
Plus 0.
So that 0, remember, is our remainder. And so since it was a remainder of 0, we don't have anything left over. That is our factored form of the original one. Does that make sense to everybody? We've got to make that connection here because this is why we're learning long division. If we don't apply it to this factoring and graphing that we're going to, it might as well not be related to the rest of the chapter. But this is how it links back in. We're going to use it as a way of factoring so that we can graph polynomials that we would have been stuck with before. So at this point, I factored it part way. Now I need to finish. X squared minus 2x minus 3. I'm really hoping that this is going to factor into something like this. Work with the people next to you. Figure out how to factor that x squared minus 2x minus 3. Get some answers. Let's go over it. So 2 minutes at most. Let's see if we can get those answers. Those factors. All right, let's find someone that's here. Nope, nope. Wow, all three of those are not here today. All right, Dom, what'd you get for the first factor? X minus 3. And then Joey, what'd you get for the last one? X plus 1. Is everybody good with that? So that one's fully factored now. See how it says, again, bad habit. I need to explain, I need to point out the instructions here. It said factor completely. This right here is factored completely. Now, the reason we're putting this all together is to do number 7. Everybody look at number 7. 2x cubed minus x squared minus 25x minus 12. And then they're telling us given 1, 0. So the 4 right here is a 0. If that's the 0, what would the factor have been? X minus 4. Does that make sense to everybody? If they're telling us a 0 or an x-intercept, that would be the factor. So notice how it's already had its sign switched, right? Before, when I had my polynomial, the binomial that I was dividing by, I had to switch the sign. They've already done that. So I'm actually putting this 4 in the box as is. Then I'm going to use the coefficients. 2. What goes next? Perfect. So everybody clear? Negative x squared, I'm going to put a negative 1 there. Negative 25, negative 12. Again, just taking each of the coefficients out of the original polynomial. Let's work this out as quickly as we can here. All right, now Nate, you just came in. Do you even missed part of yesterday's video? Okay, I'm going to let you off the hook because you're just getting caught. Emily, what would be my first step? Bring the 2 down. So again, that's always the pattern. Bring that first number down. Then what do I do next? Kathy, what do I do next? Little louder. So we brought the 2 down. What do I do with that 2? Do you remember? Sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you. That's exactly right, though. 2 times 4. Does that make sense to everybody? 2 times 4 is 8. And then what do I do with that? LJ, what am I doing? And what do you end up with? Yep. So we're doing -1 and 8, essentially combining those, adding them. But again, it does end up being like subtraction because one of them being negative. -1 plus 8 is 7. Not here. What am I doing with that 7 then? So many people absent today. Hi, May, what am I doing with that 7? So again, for the last one, Jaime, Kathy told us when we brought down that 2, we multiplied it by the 4 and we got that 8. So we did -1 plus 8 got a 7. Follow the pattern. What am I doing next with that 7? Again, with the math system. All right, so we end up with 28 there. 7 times 4 gets us 28. Negative 24 and 28 makes positive 3. Let's finish it now. Still not here. Nick, what do I do with that 3? 3 times 4 gets us 12. 0. Again, if that last one's not 0, we have a major problem because it wouldn't go in nicely. It's a great way of checking your process, right? Because if you don't end up with 0, it's not a factor, but they just told us it was. So it's got to go in. We got this 2, 7, and 3. What am I doing with those numbers now? Ethan Rocco, what do those numbers even mean? Okay, so I'll come back to you. Julian, the 2, 7, and 3, what are those? So everybody's full attention up here, because if we don't make this connection, it's a lot of pretty numbers, but they don't do anything, right? There's no use for us doing that if we don't know what they mean. And again, if you don't make that connection, this is why, and you had said you like long division better than synthetic, because it does show us everything. We don't have to do this final step of interpreting our answer. We need to know what these numbers mean. Go ahead, Caitlin. So these are the coefficients. They're the numbers in front of our answer. We started with x cubed. So now I'm going to start with x squared, 1 less. So this is now 2x squared. Negative 1 and 8 makes, nope, not, sorry, we already did that one. Negative 1 and 8 made 7, and that 7 is our coefficient, 7x plus 3. Do not forget the original factor that they gave us, that x minus 4. It doesn't. You can put the x minus 4 in front. As long as you have these 2 sets of parentheses, you've got a factored form of the original one. But it's not fully factored. I need to keep going. 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 should factor. If it doesn't, I need to use the quadratic formula. So let's try it. 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. I'm looking at this. I know it's got to be a 2x and an x. That's the only way this is going to work. And as luck would have it, it's not luck. They purposely picked ones that work out fairly nicely here. What's the only way to multiply to make 3? 3 times 1. So all we have to do is figure out where to put the 1 and where to put the 3, if this is going to work. We've only got 2 options. I can put the 3 here and the 1 here. Don't do it because it's not going to work. 2x times 1 is 2x. 3 times x is 3x. 2x plus 3x makes 5x, not 7x. So let's try again. Put the 1 here and the 3 here. 2x times 3 is 6x. 1 times x is 1x. 6x plus 1x makes 7x. Does that make sense? Okay. So now I have my fully factored equation, and I can graph it, just like we've been doing for everything else. Let's get our x-intercepts pretty quickly here. Ethan Bravo, give me an x-intercept. 4. Saul, can you give me another x-intercept? -3. And you're leaving Davian with the slightly harder one. Davian, what's the last x-intercept? Yeah, so we're going to call it -1/2. Does that make sense? It may have been what you said. I wasn't entirely sure. But again, if you're not sure about that one, 2x plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1, divide by 2. Does that make sense to everybody? So graph those. -1/2. -1, 2, 3. +1, 2, 3, 4. I need my y-intercept. Alejandro, how do I find the y-intercept?
It's gonna be even. Possible.
Okay, so you're looking at the end behavior. It is going to be, Where'd you get the even from?
Oh no, it's gonna be odd. Positive.
Okay, and where are those coming from? Because you're right.
Coming from the 2x
Uh-huh.
and the 2 is positive.
Okay.
There's a 1, but that's odd.
Yes, but we don't want to just do this one. We want to do 2x times x times
Oh.
x. So you're right that the 2 is positive, and it ended up being odd, but it was because it was a 3. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we've got low, high, and behavior, but I still need that y-intercept. Still need the y-intercept. Johnson, how would I find the y-intercept here? Yep. And so personally, Johnson, would you do it down here at our factored form, or would you do it at the top up here? Either one should work, but like, which one do you prefer using? The bottom one. So if we plug it in here, you've got 0 plus 1 times 0 plus 3 times 0 minus 4. 3 times negative 4. What does that give us, Johnson? Negative 12. Put this down here. We know it's low, high. We start low, up, down, up. Make sure we actually hit at negative 12 down there. And that's our answer. So I want you guys now to try number 11 in the homework. Everybody try number 11 in the homework. It's exactly like what we just did. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to work on that one. After we're done, we'll go over it, check our answers. I'll give you a little bit more time for homework as well. And then at the end of class, I'm going to give you the practice test. So anyone that wants to get started over the weekend can. But the homework is our priority here. 3.6, 1 through 11 on. 3.7, 1 through 12. And then the practice test, you can start looking at that, but that's what we're going to focus on Monday. Okay. So right now, get as much homework as you can done. Let's start with number 11.